because he's a king. He's judging over his people, a great people, regardless of all the faults and all the wickedness that Israel does. Israel is a great nation, a great people to Yah, the apple of his eye, his world without end. And the great King Solomon asked the Most High to give him an understanding heart so that he would be able to discern or to separate mentally the good from the bad and to be able to distinguish between the two. And a lot of times we fall short because we can't discern between the good and the evil. We call evil good and we call good wicked. That's what we do sometimes. So how many times in our prayers or beseeching the Almighty do we ask him to give us a discerning heart? Give us an understanding heart. See, and this is an example that Solomon left by, the Most High left for us to see. Look at this great king and look at what he asked me for. He didn't ask me for all the gold in the land of Canaan or all the gold and wealth in Africa. He didn't ask me to bless him to be the richest man on the face of the earth. He asked me for a discerning heart so that he could sit up and judge his people righteously. Said, discern between good and bad, for who is able to judge this so great a people? And we have to remember that Israel is a great people. And when you judge between your brother and your brother, you have to remember that you have to be able to do it in a righteous manner. Because Israel is a great people, a great nation. And what does the 10th verse says? And the speech pleased Yahweh that Solomon had asked this thing. It pleased him. And Elohim said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing and hast not asked for thyself, he didn't even ask for long life. He didn't ask him to let him live as long as Methuselah did or as long as any of his forefathers did. That didn't even come out of his mouth. And Elohim said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Now this discern has a little bit different meaning to it. And it comes from the Hebrew root word, which you can look up under 8085. The Hebrew root word is shama. And that means to hear intelligently, with attention, obedience, give ear, listen, obey, perceive, regard. And sometimes we are guilty of not doing any of this. We don't know how to discern sometimes, even when we come into the house of Israel. That's why many a times Moreh Dan has to say, stop talking. And sometimes he's even stopped and sat down until those that was engaged in a conversation that probably didn't even involve any teaching that was going on ceased. Because they couldn't discern. They couldn't hear intelligently the instructions that was given out in the class from the teachings. So Solomon not only asked for an understanding heart to be able to judge the people and to distinguish between the good and bad, but also a heart that would allow him to listen, to hear intelligently the commandments of the Most High, the instructions of the Most High. listen to the will of the mighty Yah, to hear it intelligently and to obey and to perceive and to regard. And sometimes we fall short in that. 12th verse says, behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. Now this is what the Most High told Solomon. He gave him what he asked for, so that there was none wiser before, none wiser after. Hallelujah. And that's not all he gave him. And he said in the 13th verse, and I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. All thy days. This is Brother Solomon. Not a king on the face of the earth was likened to Solomon during all of his days, because Solomon was humble enough and cared enough about his people to ask to be placed in the seat of the king with wisdom and a discerning heart. Not just to distinguish between the good and the bad, but also a discerning heart that will allow him to listen to his Creator. And how many times do we ask for that? We allow many situations get the best of us, and we ask for things that are not nearly as important to the Most High as obeying Him, having a heart that will give you the understanding and the wisdom to distinguish between the good and the bad, and how to deal with your brother with mercy and kindness, and to judge him fairly, and how to listen and obey him intelligently instead of with the rebellious heart and stiff-neckedness. And the Most High said he blessed him amongst all. Let's see what the 14th verse says. If thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. These are all the blessings that not only that he gave Solomon, but he give us as well. But we have to realize what we ask for. We have to know the difference between that pleases Yah and that pleases us. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of Yah, and offered up burnt offerings, and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. Then came there 2 women that were harlots unto the king, and stood before him. Now, let's just look at that. Look at today's kings, who call themselves presidents and whatever titles that are bestowed upon them. How would they judge between a harlot? A harlot couldn't even get close to them, could they? Couldn't even get into the same office, couldn't even have an audience with them. In fact, they would get arrested, thrown into penitentiary someplace for whatever problem they brought to the king. With Solomon, he had already asked for an understanding heart to be able to discern in judging his people. So these 2 harlots came into the king and stood before him. Right now, the only time you get a chance to sit before a king or stand before a king, if you pay out a couple of $1,000s at one of their fundraising dinners. But you see the difference between righteousness and wickedness. And the one woman said, "O my master, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the third day after that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also, and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, save we